guys, so welcome back. I'm trying to do this video really quickly because I'm waiting on my bus. I'm actually on my way to see my therapist, and I figure I address this topic about the WAIS, which is basically stands for Western Adult Intelligence Scale. It's supposed to be an intelligence test. They don't like to use the word intelligence, but that's what it's called. It's an intelligence test. It's supposed to measure intelligence. And you know, this is a test that most psychologists, have to learn. We're exposed to in our graduate training. I've already taken the class, my assessment class, where we went over different psychological tests that we can use in assessing clients and trying to get a better understanding and a better picture of what's going on with them cognitively, emotionally, And even when I was taking a class, I had some concerns about the test and, whether it measures what it's supposed to measure or even if it's fair, the way that it measures intelligence, the way it couches intelligence, First of all, on the adult intelligence scale, there are 4 different composite scores. Basically, there's the verbal comprehension, which they call the BCI. There's the perceptual reasoning, which is the PRI. The WMI is working memory, and the processing speed is a PSI. Within those 4 composite sections, they have 10 core subtests, right? So within the verbal, there is, and I have to make sure that I don't miss my bus, you guys. I got to really finish this. But within the verbal section, there are 3 core subtests, which include similarities, vocabulary, and information. In the perceptual reasoning composite section, there are 3 core subtests, which include matrix reasoning, block design, and visual puzzles. And the third one, in working memory, it looks at, the 2 subtests within working memory is arithmetic and digit span, and in processing speed, the 2 subtests are, the 2 core subtests includes a simple search and coding. By the way, you guys, I just left my practicum site, so my mind is just all over the place. But my thing is this is the reason why I create this video, because I believe that yes, the test is biased, that it's not a good way to look at intelligence. It's not a good measure of intelligence. Why? Because the main composite score that you get from the WAIS, the most important that they look at is the VCI, which is verbal comprehension. That is the biggest thing. Now, your IQ basically is a function of all 4 scores combined, but there's also like a way that they decide which score is the most important, because there are a number of scores that psychologists look at to determine a person's cognitive ability. And the verbal comprehension index obviously is the most important index on the WAIS. And I think that it is biased, because you can't say that verbal. The thing is this: it's proposing that it's measuring verbal comprehension, but it's based on the English language. That's the bias that I think that it has. It's all about the English language. It's not so much about your verbal ability, because a person can have very strong verbal ability in their native language, right? So it seems like there is this push to force people to adapt to European culture, force people to adapt and digest this English language, which we know obviously is not necessarily an official language of America, but it is the most dominant language in our country. And so they're trying to force people to be proficient in English, which I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with being proficient in a language, but to force people to hold people to a certain standard, to me sounds like you are trying to impose. They're imposing their belief that the English language should be the standard language, like it should be the official language. And not only that, but it's something that they assume that it's something that people should use that to determine how smart a person is. So if you score low on the verbal comprehension section, then you're not intelligent, right? Because the verbal comprehension section is the really important part. Language, we know, is really important, but there are many ways to look at intelligence and many ways to assess a person's intelligence. I'm like, there has to be a better way to measure a person's intelligence as opposed to using a VCI score factored into the WAIS. It's very unfortunate, I think, because a lot of people, you may score low on the verbal comprehension section, but that doesn't mean that you're dumb. That doesn't mean that you're not smart. That doesn't mean that you're not even proficient in your verbal ability. You know, it can mean a number of things if a person scores low. English may not be their primary language or their language at all. A person may not even speak English, you know, but they can still be very smart, intelligent, and wise. So I just think that it's really unfair that they use that to measure intelligence. It's not accurate. You know, a person can, that's like to say, if you're going to say verbal ability is, and not only verbal ability, but verbal ability and proficiency in the English language is a measure of intelligence, then that's like saying you take an American-born person who is proficient in English and they go to a different country, and that country decides to say, okay, this is how we define intelligence. So unless you are fluent in our language, which is the language of that particular country, that the American citizen, oh, there's a bus, y'all, no. It's not supposed to come to 411. I might just have to take an Uber, y'all, because I got to get there. But for them to, that's like if you go to a different country and they want to use verbal ability to measure intelligence, that's like for them to say, okay, if you can't speak their language, right? If you're not fluent in Spanish or Farsi or Turkish or German, then you are not smart, you're not intelligent. It sounds like basically if you're going to go use that criteria to measure intelligence based on verbal ability, that's simply saying that, okay, you can be intelligent in one context, but you're not intelligent in another context. So basically the standard of measure is it's not reliable. How can it be reliable if, okay, you're smart in one context, but you're dumb, essentially, by proxy in another context? People who score very high on the verbal section of the WAIS may do so because that's just their native language, and not only that, because they're white. You know, and I feel like just because a person doesn't speak quote-unquote proper English doesn't mean, I had this conversation many times over and over again, doesn't mean that they are dumb. It does not mean that they are dumb just because they're not proficient in the English language. There could be a number of reasons why a person, I think a lot of times people don't take into context the socio-political culture, especially when it comes to psychology and these tests that they develop, they don't take into context, or maybe they do take into context the socio-political culture, and that's their way of trying to keep certain people at the bottom with these labels, with these constructs that they assume represent intelligence when it has nothing to do with it. And even my professor who taught the assessment class, her rationale was saying that, oh, well, the reason why VCI, the Verbal Comprehension Index, is so important is because language is so important, you know, and it's assumed that you have to be proficient in, you know, the English language to be successful in society. And even thinking about that premise is kind of biased, you know, because I feel like this is America. This is supposed to be a melting pot. You should not have to be proficient in English just to be successful. Yes, it can be a bonus. I'm not, like I said at the beginning of this video, there's nothing wrong with being proficient in the English language, you guys. There's nothing wrong with that, but to say that it is a prerequisite, that it is a criteria, like it's mandatory, you know, and if you're not proficient, then you're not going to be successful in America. I feel like that is so racially biased. If y'all don't see how biased that is, it makes no sense, and it cannot be a unitary measure of intelligence because it makes no sense. If a person who is white does well on the VCI, on the verbal comprehension, and they go to another country, but they can't understand what the people are saying in the foreign country that they're going to, then by proxy that would make that person unintelligent if you're using American standards to assess intelligence. That's where the confusion comes in. It really doesn't make any sense. That's all I'm saying. It makes no sense at all. But you guys, you know what? I gotta end this video. I just had to put that out there because I feel that it's unfair, not to mention that many of the subtests on the WAIS are timed. They are timed, so it's just not fair, because in some cultures time is not even a factor. In many African cultures, people, they don't see time the way we see time. In America, it's all about do things very fast, you know? How fast can you move, right? How fast can you do something in a certain amount of time? Which can be problematic, I think. It's not about how fast a person can do something, you know? That's what machines are for, you know? And it's all about, that's with the Industrial Revolution, because it's about producing products in a short amount, as many products as you can in a short amount of time to increase profits. That makes sense in that context. But when it comes to measuring intelligence, I'm like, you can't put a person in a box. You can't assume that just because a person does not move fast on a certain task, or their verbal ability is not to the standard that white European Americans verbal ability is, that they are not intelligent. So I don't know why I chose to do this video during this time when I have a limited amount of time to go before I have my therapy session. But you know what? I gotta go. I'm gonna end this video and I'm gonna catch you guys later. Bye.